It's me, Percita, and this is Percita's Paradox. Here we are, Tuesday, ready to start our week, feeling pretty good. It is officially spring. We are hopefully warm wherever you are watching this video. If you are new to this channel, of course, I thank you so much for giving me your time today. And if you are an OG and you have been with me for a while, thank you. Continue to support. I greatly appreciate you. Today, I just wanted to come on and really touch bases on a subject matter that I think we all are dealing with in and out of our lives, throughout our lives. But today, in particular, I feel like this simple word is really going to trigger some things for some people. And that word is acceptance. And what I mean by acceptance is when we think of ourselves, how accepting are we? I mean, what do we really think about ourselves, truthfully? And I say that because we have a lot of cliches, right? I mean, there's a lot of little things that we say throughout life. I don't really care what people think. And, it's your responsibility on the way you think about me, not my own. And, all the other things and the mantras that we say. But truthfully, we're all human. And we all are susceptible to being caught up in what people perceive us to be. The crazy part about that is that if we're thinking about it from a clear mind, we start to recognize that we can't control it. And we know that we can't control it. So we have to come to some sense of acceptance in not only what we can bring to the table, but what our expectations are for others that bring their emotions and their energy to the table. And what I mean by that is that, how many times have you been asked via a friend about another friend, and they're asking you, well, what do you think about what they're saying or how they're feeling, or do you feel as if they're upset with me or not upset with me? And in your mind, in my mind, I always wonder, where's the disconnect to actually go to the individual person and ask the question? And I've said that a few times. Like, instead of just assuming that that's the way a person would feel, I would just suggest to the person to go and talk to the person directly. Sometimes the person can actually get a direct answer from the person in question. But there's a lot of times that even within you being that direct and having that type of interaction with the party that you might be in some type of discrepancy with, you still find yourself longing for the truth. And what I mean by that is that we are still caught up in what we believe we can and cannot feel or do, even if we feel as if we're trying to communicate. So many times we put ourselves in a position where we don't actually say what we mean. And it could be a plethora of reasons on why you don't do that and why I don't do that. But I want to tell you that my main basis in understanding me, basically, at this point of my life is the acceptance of my authentic self. I started to understand that if I stop really focusing on what people's perception is, then I literally can live my true authentic life. And what that means to me is it means to not be caught up in a position of trying to still look for the final answer that is appeasing to what you want the person to say or do in your life or in your situation. I do believe you have to make room for the people who want to be there, but the cold part is that you actually have to understand who really wants to be there before you can make room. And you have to be very clear on the people who are not interested in being there at all, but are possibly in a position of not knowing how to leave you. Not always are people that are in your life that want to really remain there. Sometimes people in reverse feel as if they're subjected to having to be in your life because it's expected by you for them to be in your life. Meaning they have no desire to really interact with you or really be a part of whatever it is that you're doing. And then something hits the fan, and then all of a sudden, the question comes out, why are you even here? And then they're looking at you like, I don't want to be here. I've been trying to tell you that for a very long time, and everybody's feelings are hurt, and it's a very terrible thing. And what I'd like to address in that is, where is the truth in the acceptance of who we really unapologetically are? Yet another term. Everyone wants to be unapologetic. And truthfully, that is so the cliche of all cliches right now, because everyone is apologetic. How do I know? The society that we live in is so sensitive at this point. I don't know if you've recognized they've gone through and changed cartoons and, banned certain TV shows and things like that, all due to the fact that people are now calling some sense of disloyalty to the societal traumas of the world, and they would like them to be removed. The irony is that half of the people who are saying that they want them removed do not actually watch or participate in any of that stuff. I mean, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Disney has been hit by it. I'm not quite sure what other, like Nickelodeon or whatever the other company is that has been hit by it. On top of just words and things that used to be bad that are now good, that have been reclaimed, and vice versa. It's just a environment that we live in that everyone is looking for some way, somehow, to be accepted. And we say that we're doing it unapologetically because supposedly to say it that way means that you're doing it for the better man. And it's something that's going to help the entire mass of people of the world as a whole. But what I still want to argue is that, is it really that? Or is it just an individual who's now created a narrative and created a movement amongst people who are also feeling conflicted with if they're authentically being themselves or not? Now, that's going to be a challenge. And there's going to be a few people who say, girl, you really out on a limb with that. And I'll take that blow because I still wholeheartedly believe that it all stems from the premise of acceptance of who you are, to the degree that it is very complicated to really stop and own what it is that you think you want to do or be in whatever situation it is. We just talked about something as clear as communication, or I should say clear as mud, right? Because it's not clear at all. And you're asking the person directly what it is that they want from you or what the conflict is. And sometimes just the confrontation, just the fact that you're willing to come in front of someone directly and ask them what is the problem, causes the individual to still not speak up and not say anything. That has a lot to do with the acceptance of owning that it may or may not be valid in them being upset. Maybe they took it personal. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they misunderstood. But I found it very interesting when I thought about the premise of you really almost still can't win, even if you're being direct, because there's so many people who still take that as some type of bullying tactic for an individual, when in essence, it's really just a clear line of communication. But not everyone likes that type of technique to communicate. Some people like to kind of, drag it around the bush and really figure out what's really happening and make sure everyone's feeling fluffy and on the same energy level before you do it. And at the same time, sometimes people really do come off harsher in their words than maybe we would say are necessary. But I'm still pointing out the irony of all of this is the acceptance of understanding, do you really care about anything more in any of this than the perception of what you look like to the other person or to the situation itself? It took me a very long time to really come to grips with the way that I hide, right? And what I mean by that is that I've always been told, if you don't wear makeup, then it's a better thing because you're better, right? There's a saying that's going on the internet right now that just says something like, people who can cook from scratch feel like they're better than everybody else. And I think it's hysterical because it's actually pretty true, in the sense of when you say to someone you cook, if you're not cooking from scratch, for a person who cooks from scratch, there's a little belittling. I won't even say a little. There's a belittling that transpires between the individuals in the conversation, as if your food couldn't be as good as theirs simply because it's not from scratch. Now, I can cook from scratch. I can't cook everything from scratch, but I can cook some things from scratch. And I could say that there are some things that I would say are better from scratch more so than having some assistance or being semi-homemade or, not homemade at all. But in the same breath, is it really necessary for us to put a person in a position of not feeling as if they can be authentic if they're using pre-made or pre-packaged things? I don't know. I mean, you be the judge, but I still think that's a very funny cliche. But to come back to the conversation of, do we understand that in order to be placed in anything, we have to be willing to be healed and to address the actual issue that we're going through. And I think that is the first thing we need to do in moving forward. How do we do that, you might say? Well, let's go back to my makeup analogy. So again, I did not come up in a life, I should say, growing up where my skin was perfect, or, I didn't have like acne scars, or I didn't have a deep voice, and being a petite woman of color, it was not very exciting to have a deep voice back in the day. I wasn't really the girl that I always would say I wanted to be. I wanted to be, the light skin, green eye, good hair, quote unquote, black female that was raved upon as being beautiful. Now you might say, well, what does that mean? Well, I never considered myself to be beautiful because that was never a term that was used. So in saying that, I've always had a hiccup in my spirit, let's just say, about not feeling as if I would be beautiful. Again, the heavy voice, all of the things that go against, quote unquote, the femininity of what a woman is supposed to be. I've always been an athlete. I've always been super strong. I've always had more of a dominant personality. And these are just not things that were identified when I was growing up as things that females do, right? So I look at it, and through the years, I found myself finding ways to hide behind things. So again, when I found out that the women of the world, society identified pretty women as I was growing up as women who didn't wear makeup. So I said, well, I'm just not going to really get into wearing makeup because I still want to be pretty. I want to be beautiful. Not understanding that had nothing to do with my true acceptance of who I was. And to be perfectly honest, to hide behind in reverse, not wearing makeup against where most people would say that they wore makeup to hide the scars and the issues was what I thought was sane. See how that works? Now, you never think about it from that perspective, but that was truly my angle. I wanted to be what everyone else identified beautiful to be, pretty to be. So I did what I thought pretty girls did. And I thought that if I put on makeup, then I'm confirming that I'm not beautiful because I'm hiding behind the fact that I need makeup to make me better. Now, as I've gotten older, I realized that was actual all BS, right? And the truth of the matter is that there's absolutely nothing wrong with me, and there's nothing wrong with me wearing or not wearing makeup, but I don't need to hide behind either because it's just an enhancement, no matter how you flip it. And of course, it's comical now to look because now melanin is in and dark skin is in. Now I'm not dark enough. How comical is this? And I'm not in a position where, I can really utilize the angle of the skin color and the light eyes and the good hair any more or less than I could before. But I've learned through all of that, it was never any of those things that determined my acceptance. It was really me in the acceptance of understanding that I was being my authentic self and that I didn't need to wait for others to perceive me as beautiful if I understood that I was beautiful myself. Now, in that acceptance, it took years. I mean, it still can be a struggle depending on, what I'd say, whatever the circumstance is or who I'm around or whatever is going on. And that's just being truth and transparent or truthful and transparent. But in the same breath, I'm going to say it's been such a blessing to be able to say I don't have to hide in anything. I can literally come out and protect myself by addressing the issues and walking in a manner that is going to allow me to move unapologetically. And what I mean by that is that now I can walk through life and not care what from the good about me to the bad about me to the history of me. It doesn't really matter because I've accepted myself and I'm not caught up on anyone's perception. I am only concerned with what I perceive myself to be. And that acceptance took a very long time for me to really comprehend and for me to walk in and for me to continuously heal in and protect myself in. And what I'm hoping is that we understand what that is and what it looks like. And the first thing that we can do is to stop hiding and not be in a position of putting ourselves in a place that we have to not display who we are because of someone's perception of what they think we should be. A lot of times we'll be around people who've only been with us during a phase of our lives. Sometimes we'll find ourselves going back, especially now in this day and age where society has all kinds of social media platforms, and you may run into somebody that you knew way back in the day, and they haven't seen you in 15, 20, 30 years, and they actually believe they know you. I have this conversation with people I know all the time, and they're like, oh, yeah, I went to school with so-and-so, and, she was really cool. And I'm like, the operative word is that you said was, because you really don't know where a person is at this stage. But we tend to act as if we had some type of a history with them, so we know them. What I am learning is that true acceptance is understanding if you're constantly changing, then there's no way to really diagnose or really know a person. I always love that when someone says like, well, so-and-so knows me. I'm like, well, that's kind of like, a strange statement to make, because I don't believe we really know ourselves. I think we're continuously learning ourselves, because if we knew ourselves that way, then we would not struggle with so many different things. We would be acceptant of whatever it is, right? So this is where I'm coming from of that's a process for you to actually go into, I'm going to learn how to walk in a daily task of accepting instead of a time frame way of accepting. The second thing you could do is to simply walk in your validity of being important and understanding that you are someone with a purpose. You are, regardless of what you think, regardless of what is coming your way, regardless of your financial situation, regardless of anything, your health, all of that, because you're here for a purpose. Even if it's for a season, understand that you are here to do great things, and always believe that. Third, always find yourself in some type of meditation that you can really fortify what you're saying and what you're going through, so that you know that acceptance of who you are is key. And really find yourself, fourthly and lastly, I'll just end it here, find yourself being around people who are absolutely understanding of your journey and who can nurture you as well as nurturing themselves, and who can be wholeheartedly, unapologetically honest and accepting of not only you, but themselves, and they hold you accountable for what that should look like. So we can absolutely go on and on about it, but I wanted to touch on those simple issues today and to give you something to think about and to ponder. We'll come back and discuss it, later on. Maybe I'll say by the end of the month, and if not, definitely in the months to come, because it's something that you really have to kind of chew on. You can't really take it all in at once. You just have to know that you're worth it. Everything that you're doing to try to enhance and make yourself better, I get it. If you want to do it and it's something that you want to do it. But understand that at the end of the day, if you're only doing it because you don't want to do the work of your acceptance, you're still going to find yourself needing to do everything that you thought you didn't have to do to be in an acceptance position. It would equate to you're running a race, right? And if you're doing anything to shortcut yourself, all you're doing is giving yourself a head start. But here's the irony. You still have to finish the race, even in a head start. And even in a head start, you can lose the race if you don't understand that principle. So, as always, I hope that you have a beautiful day. All I'm going to ask for you to do is to live your life authentic. And the first way to do that is to be accepting of who you are. Not who you're trying to be, but who you actually are. So as always, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to talking to you on Thursday. And again, have a blessed day. Bye-bye.